I remember my treasurer saying to me, we can't even pay him the first month. And I said, well, he's quit his job now and he's moving like next week. We can't say no. And then the next day we received £10,000 through the post. That was what we needed to raise for that year. Tommy wanted to quit because there was fights everywhere. And the building got smashed to bits regularly, multiple windows of a night, smashed the CCTV off the wall, break in, rob projectors. The place got set on fire. And I said, Tom, this is, in my experience, this is what happens when we do outreach to young people.
Welcome, everybody. This is Simon Gilbert with Inspired. Great to be back for another week of encouragement and challenge and inspiration. I think most of you, like me, we just had enough of being relentlessly bombarded by negativity in the press. It just makes us more cynical and depressed and anxious and downcast. And what we need is to laugh and to be cheered in our spirit. And I say laugh this week because we've got with us someone who's very funny. He's part comedian, he's part pastor. Welcome, Allan Finnegan.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's so good to have you, brother. Allan's from Bootle. I've preached up in Bootle. I think at one time it was the second most deprived place in the country. So I'm guessing a roughish start in life, and then came to national prominence through a successful run on Britain's Got Talent. We'll look at that clip in a few minutes' time with Simon Cowell and others just hooting with laughter at your brilliant comedy. And this is all the more poignant, guys, because, well, Allan, why don't you share your health situation?
I got a cancer diagnosis a couple of years ago, which was eye cancer, ocular melanoma. And I actually didn't think it was that big a deal, to be honest. But it turns out it really was. It turns out that if you get it, there is no cure. And if you've got a particular gene, which unfortunately I had, it's very likely to spread, come back, and then that is basically game over in some ways. And so I've been getting some treatment for that some we had to pay for, which we can talk about a bit later. But that's all come to an end, and I've just been told a couple of weeks ago that I've got 2 to 3 months to live. And so, yeah, time is of the essence right now for me. I'm doing things, I'm getting things out the way, kind of little ticks on a little bucket list that I've got. I've done a lot in the time, that extra time that God gave me, with family and friends and all that, but it's now getting very real, and I'm starting to get weaker, feels like day by day, and so time is of the essence, to be fair.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time, brother, and all the more. And a couple of people are saying, get Allan on, and we haven't met, but to me, this is a very precious conversation we're having now. So anyway, let's go back. So Bootle, lots of people won't have heard of it, on the outskirts of Liverpool. Was it a tough gig?
I think the problem is you don't know it's any different. It's just normal life for you until you experience somewhere else. Like I remember going to Guildford and thinking, oh my dear, what's going on here? This is like amazing. And so you don't know your school's absolutely rubbish. You don't know you're living in, not very good accommodation kind of thing. You don't know you're kind of disadvantaged because it's just life for you. It's just normal. But it was, on reflection and looking back, it was a bit rough, and it was a bit, tough round there. But yeah.
So paint a picture for what family life was as a kid.
I was an only child. I lived in a 2-up, 2-down house in Bootle, which was very, very small. Again, I didn't realise it was so small until you go back as an adult. That's all being knocked down now, a bit like my hopes and dreams. My school got half knocked down, and the whole area is being redeveloped. And used to play in the street. You played out loads then. You were allowed to, you know what I mean? We kind of don't let our kids do any of that anymore. I enjoyed being in Bootle. I thought it was really good, as I say, until I seen somewhere else, and I could compare and contrast it with it, and then realised that it wasn't as good as my memories make it. And so, as a child, yeah, it was a good childhood. It wasn't bad. Mum and dad, usual friends round there. It was a good. I enjoyed it. It was good. Yeah.
Any kind of faith background?
No, not really. The only faith background I had at that point would have been I went to Boys Brigade. And actually, this is a story, actually. And you had to go to church once a month or you couldn't go on the holiday.
Right.
And I don't think I'd ever been on holiday without my parents. We hadn't really been on many holidays at that point anyway. And I remember being very young. I was asked to give like my story once at a kind of after dinner thing. And I remember standing up and saying, I came to faith at 16 and then I suddenly felt a jolt within me to say, no, that's not true. And I, because I have no filter, that came out. I went, well, actually, no, that's not true. So I look really bad at this point in this after dinner thing. And because I remembered as a kid going to one of these BB kind of Sundays that I had to attend because I wanted to go on the holiday, that there was a bishop speaking. And I remember going and I remember him asking if people wanted to be saved. And I was a kid. I had short shorts on. That's how I know I was young, because you wouldn't wear them later on or you might get your head kicked in. So I remember going to the front, kneeling down, and this bishop putting his hands on my head and praying for me. And then I toddled off. And as I was doing this talk live, I suddenly remembered things in my life where I kind of got into trouble, but just fell short. And I kind of felt at that moment, on reflection, which I've been doing a lot of, as you can imagine lately, that was the hands of God just keeping me from getting too far drawn into silly stuff that could have got me in proper trouble. And I believe God had his hands on me like from that young age until something at 16 happened that was that confirmed that and changed the rest of my life. So yeah, so I didn't have a faith background. However, that kind of happened to me during Boys Brigade. And then I went on this holiday and it was in Wales somewhere. All I can remember is it was in a field full of cow dung. That's all. And I'd never seen that before in my life. You know what I mean? I don't think I'd ever seen a cow. So it was a bit of a funny time. Yeah.
So how did you sort of become a Christian and grow in your faith?
I met a girl at a party who's now my wife. I'm 16 years of age at this time. We're now married. But her mum and dad were churchgoers, and she was sort of at that age where she didn't really want to go anymore. And we ended up, they kept asking me to go to church. So to shut them up, they used to have a 4:30 service. It's in the actual church now that I'm the minister of. We used to go to the 4:30 service just to shut them up. Because I thought church was for people, old women with hats on and things like that. It was just irrelevant to me. And when I walked in Emmanuel Baptist Church at the time, which was a bit weird anyway, because I've never heard of a Baptist church, I was Church of England, and I only knew Church of England and Catholic. That was it. And so I walked into this church, and I feel like everyone's looking at me. And there's old women with hats on, you know what I mean? And an afternoon service, not well attended. It was boring but they took me to the dad took me to something called the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International, which was new at the time. And it was like an after dinner thing where they have some food and then they'd sing some crazy songs with someone with a rainbow guitar strap on, and which I thought was like, wow, it was out there, you know what I mean? And then someone would get up and give their story, their testimony about how they'd come to faith. And I was at this dinner and they were all up and they were all like arms in the air, and I'd never seen anything like that. I actually thought they were all wacky. But then this fella got up to speak. I still remember his name. His name was Paul Gianardi. He was a convert from Islam. And it wasn't necessarily what he said, how he came to faith. It was his conviction. And I remember thinking to myself as I was sat there, you really, really believe this? I know you really believe. I'd met people and they hadn't struck me that way. I wouldn't say they were insincere or anything, but they just hadn't struck me that way. And he really believed it. And I remember saying to myself, if that's faith, that's what I want. I want that. I want that. I want that. And anyway, the usual at the end of that, they asked for people, if you want to become a Christian, put your hands up. And everyone's eyes were shut on the table because I'm naturally painfully shy, right? And I'm an introvert. Really? Oh, massively, yeah, massively. So I sort of snuck my hand up and I didn't know the rules at this point. You know what I mean? Like he was going to say, "Come forward next." I thought I was done at that bit, but he literally. He says, "Well, all those who put their hands up, come forward. I want to pray for you." And I was dying. I was literally going down the chair trying to get under the table. Anyway, a few people got up, and say 4 people, I think. And then he said, "There's one more person who put their hands up who hasn't got up," and I am. Honestly, I'm like, "Oh no, I hate this. Oh, this is terrible." Someone got up, right? Someone got up and walked to the front, and I'm like, I'm off the hook, right? Literally. So never said a word. It was about a week later. I was walking my then girlfriend home. She lived in a nicer part of Bootle. There are nicer parts of Bootle than I lived in. And but we were a little bit early, say 20 minutes early. She had to be in at 10 and it was 20 to 10 or something like that in the night. And she said, "Do you want to come in for a coffee?" And I said, "Yeah, all right. I'll come in for a coffee." So I goes in. And even in working class areas, this isn't right at that time of night, you know what I mean? I don't know what order now because it's so many years ago. But within 10 to 15 minutes, 3 people knocked at the door. One of them was the pastor of the church. And one of them was a deputy head school teacher who used to go to church but wasn't going anymore. And one of them was one of the people I knew from the church and I'd spoke to a couple of times. So I knew him. And they all had the same type of story. I felt God told me to come. One was driving past the lad I knew on his motorbike, but the other 2 came from their houses. Wow. I felt God told me to come here. And they assumed to pray for Roy, who had a heart problem. That was the dad. And so I'm sitting there, which felt like the hottest cup of coffee in the world, like it had been microwaved to death or something, because I just wanted to drink it and get out, because there's 3 people and Roy in the house, and they decided to pray for him. So they sort of kneel down on the mat in front of the fire, and I'm on the couch, and I'm like, "What's going on here?" Anyway, and as they're praying for him to be healed, one of them spoke in tongues, which I'd heard in this wacky meeting the week before, right? And I was like, "What's going on?" But so I'd had a conversation with that lad I knew about it, and I was kind of okay with it. Still thought it was a bit made up, but you know. And anyway, as soon as they finished, it was weird. If I felt like they all understood what he said, because as soon as he finished, they all turned and looked at me, and one of them said, "We've got to deal with you first."
Wow.
And so they then explained the gospel to me, what it was. I'd heard the story in school, because that we were still getting things like that, and I had a teacher in junior school that wouldn't let us go out and play sport, ruined my football career, but just used to tell us Bible stories. And when will I ever need Bible stories? You know what I mean? How wrong was I? So they explained the gospel to me, and then we prayed together. And then by this time I'm late, forgetting all myself, so I'm running, and I got stopped by the police because there'd been burglaries in the area, and I was running down the road. They stopped me by the police, and I'm saying, I've just found Jesus." And they must have thought I was mental. So they literally just let me go. they probably couldn't be bothered with the paperwork or something. They literally let me go. Yeah. So it was a dramatic kind of night. And then after they prayed for me, one of them prophesied about that he'd brought everyone here for a reason tonight, and that it would be a kind of difficult road, but a fruitful road. And I've always remembered that. I always thought, why does it have to be difficult? Why can't it be a bit easier? So yeah, it was kind of a dramatic introduction to faith, and that changed my life massively. It massively changed my life. I'm not saying I was this perfect thing after that. I wasn't, by no means, but my thinking and everything completely changed, and yeah, I was all in at that point.
Yeah, because I know you've talked of Bootle. Well, typically in a deprived area, community is strong, but aspirations are low, aren't they? So yeah. You know, what did you think that you were going to end up doing? Was it very limited?
Well, you never think anything. You always keep your head down under the parapet kind of thing. And it's something that's probably dogged me all my life, that you almost self-deprecate all the time. You don't want to big yourself up in this type of community. I think that's a general thing. You do get the exception to the rule on that, like, but you generally just keep your head down. You don't get too big for your boots. And then I had no idea what it meant, because I'm new to faith. I don't even know what faith is really. I'm learning. I started reading the Bible. I didn't really read very well at school. I couldn't read out loud. Teachers used to make me, because I was a bit of a pest, just to make me look soft and all that. So everything, yeah, I was very limited in what I thought I would achieve, or belief in myself was, and probably still dogs me to this day in a weird kind of way. Even though I know it's there, and even though I know I try to force myself through it, it still speaks in the back of my mind. What are you doing? You're an imposter. What are you doing? You're going to get rumbled. You can't do this. That voice that undermines everything. In everything, not just church. In comedy, it was exactly the same. On a building site, it was exactly the same. BGT was the same. I'm walking out onto stage going, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? So, it's something that has probably dogged me and has limited what I've done and what I think I can do. I'm definitely not one of them people who's a glass half, what is it, full. It's more of a glass smashed. So anything. But Christianity was brilliant for that in some ways, because if you did anything good, that was God. So it wasn't you anyway. So all the good stuff was God. If you did anything bad, that was defo you. But anything good, it was God, or it was the Spirit through you. So it actually helped with my self-deprecation and my poor view of my self-image, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
It actually did help for a long time. Yeah.
So you end up on a building site for a number of years, do you? And is that an easy place to be a follower of Jesus?
No, not at all. Yeah, I ended up on building sites. It was the 80s. I left school in 83, I think. And it was Thatcher's Britain, and Liverpool didn't come out well in that. And so, there was no work in Liverpool. A lot of people migrated away from Liverpool. It was a decline in population and everything at the time. But when I left school, it was YTS's £25 a week youth training schemes. And I remember my first job, I was learning to program Apple computers. They were brand new at the time. They were BBC Apple. And I was learning to program Apple computers. I'm dyslexic, I found out later on in life. So I don't know how that had gone anyway. But yeah, I was learning to program Apple computers, and I blew it. So I can't believe I was doing that. And then I ended up on a YTS, which was for building sites, building skills, with a gang of what I can only describe as lunatics in the south of Liverpool. Like your coat, I went in first day with a sheepskin coat on, like Del Boy kind of thing. And the arms got cut off with an axe within the first couple of hours. So it was just crazy, right? And then and then I end up on building sites and all that, doing groundwork mostly, which is like digging holes basically for a living. Yeah, that was tough, because you're at the end where if you say something that they don't like, they'll just punch you. So you have to learn to be a good manager of people. It was actually good grounding, and actually good grounding for being a Christian anyway, because that building site background toughened me up a lot, and so that you couldn't really insult me. It didn't really matter. And I know some Christians who get offended when people swear around them. That was just every day for me. I couldn't get offended. I had to just live with it, and it was fine. You know what I mean? It didn't particularly bother me. And the skitting and all that. But you have to stick up for yourself as well. Otherwise you'll just get bullied to death. And so you have to come back with stuff. So it kind of did toughen me up. It was tough, don't get me wrong. But I ended up with a group of lads working mostly with them, so they end up liking you, even though they're not necessarily agreeing with your beliefs. A lot of Catholics, so they kind of just think you're wacky, you know what I mean? things like that. And I probably was a little bit wacky at the time because I was full on, I was full in, it was everything. So yeah, so it was a tough time, but a really good grounding time, I felt, for particularly becoming minister of a church in the area we're in and
Yeah.
ministering in this area. Yeah.
Did you see any of your, tough builders come to faith?
Not that I know of, but I've had a few conversations with them when they're on their own, and they've asked me to pray for stuff.
Yeah.
That's as good as it kind of gets with them. They'd never admit it, you know what I mean? So they wouldn't admit talking to me, but they would talk to me on their own about stuff and faith and ask me to pray for certain situations, mostly family stuff, and sicknesses and things like that. And I've done a couple of funerals for them, for their relatives. And so I have had some influence. Who knows what? It feels like I'm having more influence now with those people.
Yeah.
Weirdly, because I'm still in touch with a few of them because we work together for 20 years or something. So we go back a long way.
So what was the chronology of the comedy and the pastoring? How did that pan out?
So I've been in the same church since I was 16, the same church that I walked into the back of, and it was boring. I stayed around in that church, and that church has had its ups and downs over the years. It's had its successes where it was quite a biggish church, and it's gone really low and things like that. And in one of them really low times, I became the minister of the church, almost by mistake. I wasn't planning it. It was. I mean, it's a long story about having an argument with the regional minister because I wanted them to give us some money to get a minister, and they wouldn't give us any money to get a minister. And then they sort of challenged me to become the minister, and it was a kind of standoff, And I said, okay, then, or something like that. It's longer than this. The story. It's in the book, but and I ended up the minister of the church somehow. And I was like, what have I done? But never mind. And so I becomes the minister, and then I had to go. Eventually, they sort of said, you need to train to be a minister because, you basically haven't got a clue. So, but the church was doing all right and growing, you see. And I was still working on building sites 4 days a week. And I was doing 1 day a week for the church just to organise and things like that. But it was growing, and so they wanted me to train to be a Baptist minister. So they kind of sent me off to Baptist Ministers College kind of thing, and that was in Manchester. So that was a challenge with this voice because of the rivalry. But it was during that we were in I'll say preaching class, homiletics, but preaching class.
Sure.
And the tutor was saying, the day of preaching has had its day. It's finished. Nobody listens anymore to one person with one microphone. It's a cultural oddity. And I'd literally been to the Echo Arena the night before to see Peter Kay. An hour and a half with a little break in the middle to 11,000 people screaming for more at the end. So I said, it's not. One person, one microphone is actually really culturally, it's there at the moment. Comedians are selling arenas out. I said, so it's not the mode, it's what you say when you've got the microphone in your hand. That's the problem often.
Yeah.
That led to a learning objective. We had to do these things on top of our academic stuff. We had to do some outside. And my learning objective was to attend a comedy course and compare and contrast preaching and comedy.
Wow.
So I got on a 6-week comedy course in Liverpool. When I signed up, I didn't realise you had to do a gig at the end in a proper comedy club.
Wow.
So I did this comedy club, this course, and then we had to do a gig, and I was terrified.
Sure.
Absolutely terrified. And they did this thing where they said, we're going to put you on first, Alan. And I was like, oh yeah, put the rubbish one on first, you get them out the way kind of thing. And they were like, no, it doesn't work that way in comedy. The first and the last ones are often the best. The ones in the middle, we sort of hide in the middle. And I was like, oh. So I went on, and it went all right because a lot of your friends and family are there because you invite them to it. It went all right, but I had no intentions of doing comedy. I was just doing this little assignment that I had to do. Just go to, but someone booked me for another gig, which was in a totally tiny place if 10 people were in, it was full. You know what I mean? And then someone booked me again for another gig. And then this lad who was on the course with us, he was like, we'll go round and do comedy together. And I was like, okay, I'm not really doing comedy kind of thing. But it just snowballed from there and actually became a little bit of therapy for me from the rigours of trying to work, do a degree and run a church with a young family at that point, you know what I mean? So I was pretty like rushing everywhere trying to keep all the plates spinning. And then I started doing this comedy, which was a bit of a release. Yeah, I didn't intend to go into comedy. It sort of happened to me.
Well, listen, folks, maybe the pinnacle was Britain's Got Talent, certainly in terms of numbers, millions of people watching you on TV and then appearing before Simon Cowell and co. So let's just have this 2.5 minute clip where you blew their socks off, and it's so heartwarming to if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll be able to see it, but otherwise you'll just hear it, but you'll see the crowd absolutely letting rip, and it's a beautiful clip. So let's just watch this now.
Hello everybody, you all right? I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Baptist minister, actually. Most people don't know what that is. I have to explain. It's a bit like being a vicar or a priest, but I don't wear frocks. As long as we don't count Tuesdays, because that's my day off, I can do what I want. And me and my wife are the same cup size, so that comes in handy. I'm married. I've been married for 30 years, over 30 years now. Thank you. We all know what it means. It just means my love life has become a bit like my bank card, contactless. There are other similarities I don't like to talk about. The fact that I don't have to worry about pressing any buttons. Transactions are quicker than they used to be. And I'm constantly getting declined. So...
There we go.
It wasn't that way in the beginning. Oh no, it was all welcome gifts, high interest and instant access. Now it's flat rate, no interest, and I need 3 to 5 days clearance, to be fair. And I had to train to be a minister of a church. You can't just turn up, I had to train. I'm still on probation, to be honest. But that's kind of cool where I live, so that's all right. Sometimes I take my watch off, put it around my ankle, cover it with my sock, just to get in character. With all that training, you think I'd be good at my job, wouldn't you? I'm not, I'm really not. You know, because they don't teach you what you need to do. You know what they taught me? Hebrew and Greek.
Greek.
I'm from Bootle, right? Seriously, the only Greek I know is Stavros, does me kebabs, right? And Hebrew's when a guy puts the kettle on. Good night, and God bless.
Oh, that was so good to see that, Alan. Brilliant stuff. Was that the most fun thing you've ever done?
It was the most terrifying and the most exhilarating thing I've ever done, I would say. I was absolutely terrified. I'd forgotten everything I was going to say before I walked out on stage, and the producers just said to me, just smile and wave, you'll be all right.
Oh.
It'll come back to you. And in fairness, it kind of did, yeah. But I just didn't want to get buzzed off, to be honest, because the person before me got 4 buzzers, and they are really, really loud. They're not, the television doesn't do them justice. They're way louder it live. The noise it would make you jump. So, and they didn't have time to warm the crowd up in between, because they have a warm-up guy making sure the crowd are all up for it, you know, singing Amarillo and all this sort of stuff. And so they just said, we're running a bit late, we're just going to get you straight on. I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah, I was terrified. I think in the very beginning of the clip, you can see me hands shaking as I'm holding the microphone slightly. Yeah, that's nerves, proper nerves. And then afterwards, I almost couldn't believe it had happened.
Yeah.
I was like, because I was on my own, It was just before COVID had locked everywhere down, like a week before or something. It was filmed, and I'm on my own. I'm in London. I couldn't get a train back home because it's too late by that time. So I had to stay in a hotel, and I stayed in a hotel called the Just Good Enough Hotel. I had to pay for that. It cost me money to go on Britain's Got Talent. It literally cost me money. So yeah, I was walking up the road in a pair of £9 Primark shoes that they'd bought me because I had a pair of trainees on. And they didn't want to advertise them Nike Air Max. And I was literally walking up the road going, did that really just happen?
Yeah.
And I had no one to talk to about it. It was a strange feeling.
Very
I remember
strange.
going in the Just Good Enough hotel. It was like a university gig hotel, digs hotel, and they had a little pizza bar. And I remember ordering pizza and going to the fella, "I've just been on Britain's Got Talent, you know." And he was like looking at me like, "Mate, I'm just serving a pizza. Leave me alone." Yeah.
But I guess you when you're up there, it was like that was like God's favor, His gifting, His passion in you. Just all that, it's that coalescing of all those factors, wasn't it? And you must have felt so alive. And I'm guessing in a very different, less dramatic way when you're preaching back in church and when you're serving your community, which I know you've been doing that for decades, and you've got a great reputation in the community. That is the glory of God is man fully alive, isn't it, in Him and how He's made you.
Yeah. What brings me life is seeing other people prosper or enjoy life.
Yeah.
That's what brings me life. I'm not really, because of the self-deprecation, low self-image, imposter syndrome, I'm not really bothered about myself. I like it when other people are enjoying life and prospering. That's what makes me get up every day. That's what makes me keep going. I've been in this church now for 42 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Being the minister for nearly 21 of those. And to just keep turning up every day through the tough times and the great times, you know, because as the minister of the church, you're juggling all of that at the same time. Some people are having a wonderful thing and you're part of that and celebrating that. And then there's some really depressing stuff going on that you're part of that as well. And so I like seeing people prosper and I like seeing people enjoy life. And that brings me life. That's what feeds me. And so doing things like that and seeing all these people laughing, almost couldn't believe they were laughing at me, if you get what I mean. Yeah. And I couldn't believe the standing ovation. And Simon Cowell, he actually said on it, he just pressed his golden buzzer 2 before me for a singer, a little girl that sang, and she was very good. But he actually said, which they didn't show on the television, that's the best audition we've had this season.
Oh, great.
I know. I was like, wow, because he's the one that matters the most, isn't he? He's the most critical normally.
Yeah.
And so it was a moment of pride, but I wouldn't let myself be proud because of the low self-esteem, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, what brings me life in ministry isn't necessarily the highs that I achieve. It's more about other people and seeing them fulfill things and become better than they thought. And things like that. That's what brings me life.
Yeah.
So I go back to church now. I've been off sick for a while. I go back to church now and I would say 50% of the room I don't know. And they don't know me really. I'm probably just a name to them that they can't put a face to because they're new to faith. Our church never grows in numbers. It just changes faces. They seem to come to us and then end up somewhere else because of life moving on and all that kinds of stuff. But it's a wonderful place to be, our church. I might explain that a bit more later, but
yeah. Well, go on, just tell us about the Lord's work in and through your community, because Sarah Small got in touch with me last year and said you got to get Allan on, and she runs the message, isn't she? And the Eden projects, which these bunch of people and different teams go out and serve in different communities, and you've got one there. And tell us some of the beautiful, costly, gospel with meat on it, that's out on the streets, and it's tough, hard yards, but the fruit that you've seen.
Yeah. Because I've been in the church 42 years, I've seen everything, if you understand what I mean. And our church has gone from what I would class as a kind of holiness, charismatic-y kind of flavour into what it is now, which I would say is much more earthly, real, authentic. You get what you see on the tin kind of flavour. And I would say that's mostly because of Eden. We've had an Eden project for about 13 years, 14 years now, roughly. And I knew when we had the conversations with Eden that that would change the church. I knew we had to embrace what they were about and not be what we were traditionally. I also felt at the same time that I was wrecking the church because it was a lovely church full of lovely Christians who were all really nice and got their heads together. In reality, they weren't, but it looked that way on the surface. And I was embracing this messy, what is it kind of thing going on, you know. And Eden came in and it's been great. We had Tom and Emma who were our first Eden leaders. Tom now runs Proximity for the message, and he's a great guy. He really is a great guy. And they came, and we've had all sorts of different projects going on with that. I think the building got smashed to bits regularly, and I mean the roof tiles like smashed 400. We got them fixed. They went back and smashed all them tiles again. No other ones, just the new ones. We had to get that fixed. They used to smash multiple windows of a night, smash the CCTV off the wall, break in, rob projectors. You know, we were uninsurable at one point, and we've got the irony is we've got no money. You know what I mean? We haven't got money. We kind of started this Eden project in faith. I remember my treasurer saying to me, we can't do it. We can't do it. We can't even pay him the first month. And I said, well, he's quit his job now and he's like moving like next week. We can't say no. And my treasurer was really thingy. And then the next day we received £10,000 through the post of someone that I'd had a very brief conversation with down in Guildford, actually.
Wow.
A friend of mine moved down there. That's why I mentioned them. But I'd had a very brief conversation and they sent us £10,000 through the post. And so it was a miraculous, that was what we needed to raise for that year. It was a miraculous thing. And the Eden team, Tommy wanted to quit because the church was getting wrecked and there was fights everywhere. And I said, Tom, this in my experience, this is what happens when we do outreach to young people. The place gets wrecked. Okay, this is a bit extreme. The place got set on fire. Someone burnt the old man's like out basically, where I should have been living, but I had a house locally, so I stayed in that, and which was a blessing in disguise because the insurance company were going to put it back together as a house, but we had plans for it as a cafe. So we said to the insurance company, instead of putting it back together, your estimation of what that'll cost, give us the money and we'll make it into a cafe. And they agreed. So it was a blessing in disguise in some ways. It was hard to see at the time, but because it's tough, you know, everywhere smelling the smoke. But through that, we've seen some incredible stories of faith. And the way the church has changed, and the church is completely different to what it was then. Yeah. And as I said, I thought I was wrecking it, but in the last few years, I've come to realise that there's something beautiful about our church because real people from the area are coming to faith. Now it's absolutely messy, and it's not what it was back in the 80s where coming to faith seemed quite, oh yeah, you do this, and you're nice then, and you carry a big Bible and you wear a tie kind of thing. I don't know. But you know what I mean? You look the part and everything. This is not that. What's happening is not that. But the stories that they tell us about coming to faith and the language they use to describe what happened to them, we couldn't coach them enough to get them to say it. So it's something really real. Yeah. And it's authentic. As I say, it's very messy still. If you come to our church, someone probably will swear at you. You know what I mean? So it is very, it's very grounded, I would say. What you get is what you see. But there's an authenticity in the stories. There was one that we did a baptism 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now. And the girl getting baptised had issues and was in rehab for alcoholism and stuff. She'd come out, she'd asked the doctor for extra support, and the doctor's, we've got nothing for you. You'll have to just get on with it now. And so she got on a bus to go home, and the bus was diverted. So she had to get off, and she got off in another bus stop and waited for a different bus. And there was a woman sat in the bus stop there, and they got talking and somehow ended up talking about addiction. And the woman said, "Oh, there's a Celebrate Recovery group starting in Emmanuel Baptist Church tonight. Why don't you come?" She started attending our church. I don't even know who she is, by the way. So, this girl said, "I live on Sefton Estate, which is the estate our church is on. So I know that church. I will." She came. She's been coming now for nearly a year. She's now the deputy manager of our community grocery. And she'd lost all her family and all that. They all came to her baptism. She's restored to the family. And it's just a beautiful story. And again, the language she's talking about it's not your typical Christian language. It's down to earth language, but you know exactly what they mean.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
And I could tell you story after that. We had a girl who came to faith because we did this Find the Sheep across Netherton, the lost sheep. And we had knitted sheep in different locations, and you had a bit of a search, for the kids to do. And on the Sunday, they came to get their prizes and that for completing the search, which was some sort of chocolate selection box or something. I don't know. Easter kind of must have been an Easter egg, mustn't it? And she ended up on Alpha, and again, beautiful stories. And I could probably repeat them all the time. Another nightclub singer, singing in the clubs and pubs around Liverpool, but was a medium as well, and used to do readings in pubs. So pretty big at it. She had dreams where Jesus came into her dreams and told her that she was in a dark place and she was getting frightened of what she was in. And so she lived across the road from her. She had seen a sign saying Alpha. So turned up at Alpha, one of the Alpha courses we run, and came to faith. And again, and feels like she said to us, "I feel like in the dreams, I feel like Jesus rescued me." This is her language. And so I felt I had to go to church, and I seen your church with this Alpha sign and thought, I'll go there. Yeah, and then she got baptized. She's moved with her house moved, so she can't drive, so she doesn't come anymore. But that's an example. Someone, I think it was Tom's wife, Emma, felt the Lord said to her, "I adopt people into my family, but as a church, I just want you to foster some." And so we have this role of kind of seeing people come to faith in that, and then they move on. And in some ways, that blesses my heart. In other ways, I want them to stay. Do you get what I mean? But it blesses my heart because they're in a better place, which is what I said brings me life. And so what I'm seeing now, although it's messy, although it's chaos at times, and we haven't got great worship, we haven't got great anything really. But it's something, and I think it's something wonderful we've created, and I don't like speaking like this because I don't like bigging myself up, but it's kind of a really good legacy for me to see.
Yeah.
And it's good to see that in my absence, it feels like it's doing better, which again blesses me so much because it could have been built on my personality, and it clearly isn't. It clearly isn't. It's so good to see. Yeah.
So, loving listening to this. So as we move sort of to this last chapter of your life and imminent graduation to glory, you have said that your cancer years have been your best years of your life. Now, that's a tough thing to say. Can you delve into that?
Yeah, I can. When I was diagnosed terminal and with less than 12 months to live, as it turned out, some of the treatment we got that was private meant that we could extend that by a further 12 months. But my mortgage got paid off, so I had more disposable income. I could go on more holidays while I was still fitting well. I could spend more time with the people. I also didn't have 5-year plans anymore. They were shortened massively, you know what I mean? And so I had to live in, at that time, probably 3-month plans, because that was the treatment every 3 months. And so it shortens your kind of outlook on life, and you're not living by the calendar and the clock anymore. It forced me into the moment, and really forced me into the moment. I remember walking down the street and it was raining, and I felt the rain on my face, and it felt something. It was just great. And, something as simple as that, but it literally forced me to spend time with more people, to focus on the time I had, to be more intentional about how I spent that time, because it was so much more precious than it had been. I know we're told to live in the day and in the moment, but I'll say for myself, I never did, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But this forced me into it. And as my diagnosis and treatment options have kind of lessened, and my life expectancy has lessened, that's gone even more focused. So it really focused me to be in the moment and live in the now. And I've got a sign behind me which says today is a gift. That's because I felt God saying it to me, that today is a gift. That you've been given this day. What are you going to do with it? And don't get me wrong, there are times when I don't do much because of health wise, but also because I've got nothing to do. And there's, everyone else is at work and things like that. But I have times where I just sit in quiet and stuff, and really appreciating the time I've got, and I see it as a gift. These couple of years, you could see it as doom and gloom, and that is my normal go-to kind of response to things. So this is I feel a little bit supernaturally unreal, that I'm seeing it as this time as being a gift to me, rather than a death sentence where you could be, oh, woe is me. This has been a gift. It's given me some great moments. It's given me time to see people I've wanted to see that I haven't seen for years, and say, not like ta-ra kind of thing, but yeah, say ta-ra to them, you know what I mean? And bye kind of thing. It's given me time to catch up with people. It's given me time to put things right with some people. It's just given me so much. I don't know the next word. It's given me so much more than I expected. And so I do describe it as the best years. The last 2 years have been the best years of my life. And I've had the time as well. I know that sounds silly, but I've had the time because I've been off sick most of the time in church. So I've got the time to do these things, and it has been incredible. I had to do a GoFundMe for that early treatment. I didn't think we'd get anything. I was told I needed to raise £200,000 for the treatment, 4 treatments. It turns out I needed a bit less than that. But I was like, that's ridiculous, doctor. I'm not even going to get £2,000, never mind 200 grand. And put it on Facebook. Within the first couple of hours, I had 25 grand. And then by day 3, I had enough for the first treatment. And so we booked it down in Southampton. And I ended up getting 3 treatments, which kind of worked. It put me slightly in a better place than I was a year previous. And I was eligible for some NHS treatment then. That unfortunately, I was on 6 months on that, and that just didn't work at all. The cancer grew rapidly during that point, and so they put me on another treatment recently, which is, if you've failed that treatment, you can go on this treatment, and that hasn't worked. The cancer rapidly increased and then spread even further than my liver, and so I was diagnosed terminal. Yeah, well, I was told I had nothing. They could nothing they could do. They just put me to the palliative care team, but I'm all right with that, because this would sound, I've been saying this to a lot of people, because now treatment, yeah, I'm actually now in the hands of God fully, and that's okay. And I've got a lot of charismatic friends who pray for my healing, which is fine. I love it. You know what I mean? I've got to say, I'm not expecting it, because they're called miracles for a reason. And so I'm not expecting it, but I'm glad they pray in faith. You know what I'm saying? And I've heard stories of people being healed and things like that. So I'm up for it. It's not that I'm against it at all. I just don't expect it. And that might be more about the way I think of myself again. Or I'm going to die. And that's fine. Both ways I'm okay with. I'm all right with. And I feel weird kind of even saying that, because I feel like I should be a bit more upset about this, and I'm not. And to be honest, if I feel like when people used to talk about the peace that passes all understanding or makes no sense, I feel like I might be experiencing that for possibly the first time in my life. I've heard people say it, and we pray for it and for people and all that, and I'm sure people have been praying it for me. But I think I'm in that. I don't know, but I think I'm experiencing that because I feel I should be a little bit more upset about this than I am. But actually, knowing you are fully in the hands of God is somehow reassuring. It's somehow reassuring. And it might make no sense to someone who's listening who doesn't have faith or anything, manages to stumble on this bit. But to me, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of feels like it's the right place to be.
Yeah. I mean, you're with the Apostle Paul, aren't you? 1 Corinthians 15, 55, 57, where he writes, "Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, he gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ." And so, brother, I can see it in you. There's no need to be afraid, is there? Are you afraid?
No, I'm not afraid. I mean, I don't want to die in pain. And in fact, I don't want to die, really, but I'm okay with it. If this is the time, I feel like, particularly in the last few weeks, God is rounding things off. I keep doing this when I explain this bit, because I did my first ever gig on that comedy course for a fella called Brendan Riley. And 2 weeks ago, he asked me, did I want to do my last gig? And I can't stand for very long. I can't walk very far without feeling I'm going to collapse and I'm out of breath. But I did 5 minutes in a gig, a real comedy gig in a rough pub in Southport, and it felt like that was closure.
Yeah.
So I did my first and last gig for him. After it feels like God is just rounding things off, and He's saying to me, "Look, it's okay. It's okay to go. Things are good." I went to church and seeing how good it was. It was packed, and it was a great service, and it was just so good to see. It was so good to see that it's doing so well without me and my influence, and a few other things that I can't bring to mind now. But it just feels like everything's God's closing things, and He's saying to me, "It's okay. Look, that's finished. This is finished. We've rounded that off. We've sorted that out. It's okay. It's okay." And again, as I need to reiterate, it's not that I've got a death wish. I'm not there, but I'm all right with it if I do. It's not a fear, because I know what's going to happen. I've kind of sat with people who've died with similar things that I'm going to go through. So I'm not naive at all. But I just don't want to die in pain, I suppose. I guess no one does, if we think about it. And so that's my prayer, that I kind of just drift away in my sleep. That would be wonderful. For me, anyway.
And again, with Paul, I'm thinking, as he hands on the baton, he knows he's soon going to graduate to glory. 2 Timothy 4, verse 7, 8, isn't it? I've fought the good fight. This is what you can say, isn't it? I've fought the good fight. I've run the race. I've kept the faith. And now is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. Not just to me, to all those who are longing for his appearing. And that's our Christian hope, isn't it? Allan, I found it very moving. Yeah, really powerful. Listen, as we come to an end, guys, this is a bit weird because Allan's now with Jesus, and cleared it with him and his family. And so, Allan, this is a bit weird, isn't it? But that's the Christian hope, is that total assurance we have. So what would be your words to us, if you like, from the other side?
Well, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because I'm technically right now I'm not there, so it's very difficult to say. I think the greatest thing I probably did was just keep turning up. Faithfulness, just keep going. You'll get knocks in your faith. And I had lots of conversations with people, which was the motivation for writing the book, I suppose. That they used to say to me, I used to go to church, but this happened. and they stopped. And it's not necessarily that they didn't have faith anymore. They'd sort of just abandoned it, really. I started talking to them about your faith can develop; it doesn't have to dissolve. But so there's many a time I wanted to quit church. There's many a time, almost every week at some point for something or other. But a few times when it was deadly serious, I was like, proper not, it wasn't going well and everything was against me and all that type of stuff. But you just keep turning up. I think it's called faithfulness. You just keep, and for 42 years and 22 years as a minister, I kept just turning up through the really, really, really tough times when you've got all sorts of plates spinning that are all bad, and you've got no way out. Anything you do is a kind of Hobson's choice. People are going to, one way or another, get offended and leave and things like that. And you're already not the biggest church in the world, but you do things, but what you feel your conscience and the Bible tells us to do. And hopefully I've made the right decisions most of the time, but mostly just keep going. Just keep, if I was, that would be my advice from, just keep going. The reward is greater than the journey in some way, but just keep going. Don't give up. That's how you win. You don't give up. You just keep going. Keep going when everyone else is falling. Just one foot in, turn up, get up that morning, go in. You know what I mean? Do it again. As bad as it is, and there have been bad times in our church that we've had to deal with when you just couldn't make stuff up as how bad it gets at times. But you just turn up, and that was my advice to Tom back in the day when he was like, "Oh, I'm going to quit, mate. It's terrible." And then I was like, "No, Tom, this is just the way it is. This is urban ministry. This is ministry on estates. This is what happens." And I can tell you now, Tom, it happens every 3 to 5 years where something happens that's so devastating, it wrecks the church and you almost have to start again. So if you're in urban ministry, this is what you can expect and this is what you have to do. And Tom, you just have to keep turning up, lad. And so my thing would just be faithfulness. I think that's my legacy. I think my legacy is I just kept turning up. I said to God, it's probably one of the few promises I've kept, if I'm honest, because I'm just an ordinary bloke who managed to stumble his way through stuff. I said to God, I'd never leave the church, as much as I said I wanted to at times. I'd never leave the church. And I got headhunted once, and I said to them, stop ringing me, because if you keep ringing me, I'm going to come. And I don't want to, but I do want to, but I can't. I said to God, I'll never leave the church. The only time I'll leave the church is in a box. And so, and guess if we're talking post my death now, I fulfilled that promise, and that kind of makes me happy.
Yeah,
I got let out in that box. That's I kept that one.
Yeah. Well, Allan Finnegan, we salute you. Thousands of people right now salute you. That's very powerful. Listen, guys, a few weeks before he died, Allan did manage to get out a book. I didn't ask for any of this. Church, Comedy and Cancer. We'll put that link in the blurb. And Allan hasn't asked for this, but I'm going to... I don't know how we'll do this. We'll put something in the blurb in terms of if you want to support his family, whatever. Just if you want to make a gift to bless them in their period of grieving and their next chapter. His precious wife. He's got 2 married adult kids. Is it 1 grandchild you got?
Yeah. Albie. Little genius he is. Yeah.
Well, what's great is that they will have this recording as legacy as well, won't they? They'll be able to, when he grows up a bit, to be able to listen to Grandpa, whatever you're called. Guys, right, please, I think a lot of people could do with hearing this, so please pass it on. Gossip this podcast to other people. I think that the hope that Allan is living in, it's not easy, it's not straightforward, it's costly. It's been costly for him to have the energy to do this podcast even today after traveling as well, but he's done it. He's shown up, he's turned up, and may you be encouraged to turn up, to keep being faithful. The one who calls you is faithful, by the way, and he will do it. 1 Thessalonians 5:24. So just keep on going. Okay, next week a very different guest, a very different story. But Allan, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh. Okay, guys, God bless you. Have a good week, and toodaloo.